Welcome to the 5th season of the Coaching Cast, your working from home club. We're here to remind you that you're not alone, that we're in this together, all striving to make sense of today's working world. Regardless of where you're working right now or whatever you do as a career, we've got something for you here at the Coaching Cast.
I'm Lisa, founder of Grip Corporate Coaching, personal performance coach, leader, and chief eye roller when it comes to all nonsensical corporate mumbo jumbo, which suffocates rather than advocate.
And I'm Susie, coach and trainer at Future You Business Coaching, currently taking on my hardest coaching assignment to date, parenting a 2-year-old who doesn't take too kindly to being questioned. In this podcast, we explore all the things impacting you, our CBBs, at work right now, presenting different topics each episode, which we will discuss with some special guests along the way, sharing ideas, hints, and tips for you to take away and try for yourself, as well as having a few laughs, hopefully, too. We hope you enjoy listening. In today's episode, we are discussing moving past failure or setback, something we will all experience at some point. How do you stay committed, pick yourself up, and move past it all to keep on going? We discuss alongside our top tips. So stay with us and enjoy. So Lisa, before we get into this week's episode, how have you been?
Well, after the incredible highs of last week's special 50th episode, I've been really good. I so enjoyed last week. It was so fun.
It was fun. It was lovely to have some of our CBBs join us for our very special 50th episode.
It was brilliant. And Cara, Katie and Emma were all excellent. Such great guests. And we had such fun. So yes, no, it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. Obviously, we had the slight trauma though afterwards. So we organised chocolate brownies as gifts to send to our ladies to say thank you for joining us on the Coaching Cast. And they were beautifully put together. They had thank you written on them. They were just lovely. But they went through the letterbox. And unfortunately, Cara's rather greedy basset hound decided that the box of goodies were for her and not for Cara, and tore into said box of brownie and decided to eat the brownie. So I think at a certain point last week, Susie and I honestly thought we had killed a pet.
Yeah. We thought we'd killed one of our CBB's dogs.
Yeah. So that was pretty traumatic because we love animals and Susie and I both have dogs. And so we know the trauma of chocolate and a dog, the horrible relationship that they have. So we did have a moment of panic. There were a few messages exchanged, weren't there, Susie? And I had Susie going, oh my God, I think I've killed Cara's dog. So yes. So I'm so glad that Cara and her dog are both well. The dog is fine, everyone.
The dog is fine, everyone.
We did not kill the dog.
I mean, that would have been quite a way to mark our 50th episode, wouldn't it? The fact we were like, yay, the high. Oh my God. Now we're like literally the low. We've killed somebody's pet dog accidentally.
Yeah. Mourning the loss. Oh God. Yeah. So thankfully said bucket hand as well, but that was a bit touch and go.
Hairy. It was. We had a few hairy moments, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We did indeed.
When we were like scrambling, trying to find the ingredients of these brownies, I'm like messaging Etsy sellers, like, how big is this brownie that you've sent? Because somebody's dog's eating it. But she was just like, who is this woman? Like, what is
the question was like, what is the kilogram weight of chocolate that exists in said brownie? I was like, oh my God. Yeah, that was slightly traumatic. I was in London with my mum trying to manage those messages with you and then seeing the messages from Cara. And I was like, oh God. I was like, I don't know what's going on. So yeah. But no, thankfully, all is well.
All is well. And this episode is not going to be titled The One Where We Killed a Dog.
No, thank God.
Thank God. And we are very grateful for that.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure Cara would have appreciated that if we'd called it that, if that had been what had happened. That's probably slightly bad taste, even for me. But yeah, it was a fantastic episode. So if you haven't listened to it yet, go.
What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Episode 6, season 5. It's got the best title I think we've ever come up with for an episode as well, because it is a mash together of 3 brilliant bullshit bingos that our guests brought with them, and it was
the ultimate.
So yeah, please go listen to it. It's good fun, all about women and confidence. That's what we were debating. So yeah, it was a really, really fun episode. But what about you, Suze? Because after the recording and the drama of last week's recording last week, you went away.
I did. I went away for a long weekend
Lovely.
to North Wales. It was absolutely lovely. So I wouldn't say it was a holiday because I went with children, my own, and then my friend had 2 children. So when you have kids, I'd say it's more of a trip than a holiday, because you still have to parent them and it's hard going when you're away from home. But it was a lovely trip. Thank you.
I love that distinction. I wonder if any other parent out there, any other parent who's listening to us, do you relate? Do you not call it a holiday? It's a trip.
Yeah. Well, I certainly do, because it was good. But I mean, fair play to any CVBs out there who have more than one child. Like, my hat off to you. Yeah, it was pretty relentless because we had 3 boys with us. But it was good. Like, we had a lot of fun. The weather was good. So we went to the beach, we had fish and chips, we went to the arcade, we had a lot of laughs. We drank quite a lot of wine. There was a hot tub at the cottage. So
lush.
That was cool. So like, me and my friends were in there. So yeah, it was really nice, actually. Nice to kind of get away. We had the whole drama because I've got an electric car now, which we've talked about before. We had to go in the electric car, but actually it worked out fine. Our friends also have an electric car. They're only very like new into the electric car thing. And they were so stressed about charge. And I was like, well, how many miles have you got left? They're like, we need to find a charger. I was like, how many miles have we got left? They're like 130. And we were like, well, how far is it home? They're like 89. I was like, so you've got loads of charge. Why are you so stressed about charge? We're like living on the edge. It's kind of like, our journey was like 114 miles and we had like 89. Like, we definitely needed to find a charger because we weren't getting home. So we're just like, oh yeah, we'll find one, it'll be fine. They were just like not in the same. They were suffering a lot from the range anxiety that I've talked.
I was gonna say, you and the range anxiety. It's so funny.
But no, it was all good. We both made it home. Both parties made it home. So that was the main thing. But yeah, it was good. So that happened. Also, another thing that happened to me, which is shame. Like, but no work shame, parental shame.
Oh God.
A few people might relate to this, but oh my God, it was so embarrassing. So on a Friday, I don't work Fridays. I have my little boy on a Friday. And on a Friday morning, we go to a music class. Okay. And he's moved up into the preschool class now. And because of how old he is. And basically you get homework, which is it's just basically colouring. So you get given a sheet with like instruments on every week, different instruments. So this week there was like a flute and a saxophone, I think.
I used to play the flute.
I think we've talked about this before. Yeah, I'm still waiting for that demo that you promised me. Anyway,
just call me Lizzo. I'm nowhere near as good as Lizzo.
So anyway, I'd got said homework out in like following the music class and was like, Arthur, should we do the colouring? It's just like something to do. I think it was like one day on the weekend. And he was like not interested. So I started colouring it in because I actually quite enjoy colouring. I find it quite therapeutic and I quite enjoy it. So I just sat there thinking, oh, he'll see me doing it and he'll come and join me and like he'll get involved. So anyway, I was like colouring in. He was not interested. He just wanted to watch Paw Patrol, which is his latest obsession. So I think I was like, oh, right. And then I got distracted and I think I just went off and did something else. So then my husband packed it away because we were doing it on the table. I think we were like setting for dinner or something. I forgot about it, right? Didn't really think about it. Anyway, we go to music the following week. It's like, who's got their homework? So I was like, oh, Arthur, you've got your homework. He was like, me. So he took his folder up to the class. So there's a class of parents with their children, all about like age 3, 4, etc. Goes to the front of the class. She's like, oh, I just need to, she's going through this folder of sheets, like colouring sheets. Just find the latest one. She's like, oh, this was this week's homework. Pulls it out. It's my colouring, excuse my language. So she clearly, and so does the whole of the parents, know that basically I have coloured that in, Arthur has not. And I'd forgotten that I'd done it, right? So I'm just sat there going, oh no, that's my colouring. Everyone now thinks that I've done that and put that in and making out that Arthur's done it. Like, it's so neat. Everybody knows, to the point where parents started laughing and shaking their heads because they were like, she was like, oh, the teacher was like, that's very neat. That's very, very neat. Well done, Arthur. Look how neat that is. And I'm just like, oh my God, goodness me. I need this hole to kind of appear and swallow me up, because this is so embarrassing, mortifying, but also the fact that I'd forgotten. And so I was just like, yeah, Arthur, take your homework up, go and go to the front of the class, actually just to humiliate myself. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing.
What did you do? Did you admit that you'd done it?
No, because I just kind of laughed and was like, there wasn't really it wasn't really the right opportunity to say, oh, that's me. Like, it kind of been and gone, and then they've moved on to the next activity. But everyone just thought I was an absolute
They just thought you were a big cheat.
Yeah, basically, which I was in that context. But because I was like, I can't elaborate on this, I can't give the story behind it. Oh, it was so embarrassing.
What did Arthur do then? Did Arthur just go, yeah, it is, I did that?
Yeah, he just went, yeah. Like nothing. Like she does this all the time.
So he didn't admit that you'd done it. He didn't go, no, my mummy did that.
No. He was like, yeah, cool. I was like, oh, shame.
You've set something up now.
So everyone now just thinks I'm like a fraud. Yeah, when it comes to the homework, the colouring in homework at music class. So yeah, that was quite shameful and embarrassing. But anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, this week's been quite eventful. Did that, nearly killed a dog, and went on holiday for a weekend. So a trip even.
A trip. You went on a trip.
Went on a trip. So yeah. So on that note, maybe today's topic is actually quite relevant, which is moving past failure or setbacks.
Yeah, good one. Right, let's crack on then.
Let's go. I'm pretty sure you will all have heard of Joe Wicks, the nation's favourite PT, fundraiser, and the guy who got many of us through the first lockdown with his PE with Joe initiative. The media often suggests that Joe's rise to fame was overnight, but actually it was a decade of hard work that led to his overnight success. 10 years of overcoming setbacks, persistence, and determination, all leading to the success of the body coach today. Joe is quoted as saying, many people give up on their dreams when it gets challenging, meaning they never work long enough to see successes coming in. So, Lisa, when I say failure to you, what emotions are conjured up for you?
It is such a mixture. Like, I can feel myself wrestling with what I actually feel and what I feel like I should feel, which sounds probably a bit weird, but I mean in terms of I've done a lot of learning and reading around failure as a coach, but also as a manager in like previous sort of, roles, and looking at failure and how we should deal with failure and, what is the right thing to do when it comes to failure. But that doesn't always go to plan, does it? And I think that's where my mixed feelings come from. There's a real tussle between what I actually feel and what I feel like I should feel and how I should be a bigger, better person. And it's also an element of truth in terms of actually, I do have a real conflict of emotions around certain examples that I have of where I failed. So I do get the feelings of shame and disappointment and hurt and pain, actually. I mean, I do think failure can be so painful. I don't really know how else to describe it. But there are also very quickly feelings and emotions of achievement and success and realization, and which I will talk about a bit more as to like, where does that actually come from? So I'll bring my examples of my emotions to life, but it is a real mixed bag. What about you?
So actually very similar. I think when I experience setbacks, my initial reaction, because I'm only human, as we all are, my initial reaction is always like, oh, that's smarted. Like,
That's a great description.
Like, hurt a bit.
Yeah, stings.
That stings. Because I've got an ego, as so does everybody. And when our ego gets a little bit bruised because we're not successful at something, of course it's gonna hurt. That's just natural, and that's real. So I definitely go through a period first off where I'm a bit like, oh, no, like, and I get a bit kind of angry sometimes, or I get a bit defensive sometimes. And I can feel kind of a little bit enraged as well. Like if my husband comes in from work, because obviously we work from home, and something's like, I've experienced something where perhaps hasn't gone the way I wanted, he'll know that something's happened because I'll be kind of like storming around, shutting cupboards quite rapidly, like banging them shut. I'm like, what's happened? Because I go through like this initial period of like rage, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, me just kind of getting it out. And then once I've kind of done that and gone through the motions of getting it out and airing it, I then go into a second phase, if we were to define it in that way, where I'm a lot more accepting and I'm a lot more in the headspace of being able to be like, okay, so what have I learned? What could I have done better? How can I, take this to move forward? Which, when you read about failure, and especially famous people who've dealt with failure and setbacks, they, rightly so, always talk about learning and growing from it. Of course you have to. I think, let's be real, certainly for me, there's a period before I get to that point where I am just like quite enraged.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think I know what I'm like in terms of, I really hold myself to quite high standards. And I find actually that initial stage of emotion, reaction, and all that it brings quite difficult to deal with, because I'm always in a rush in my head to get to the learning, because I don't want to be in that space, not just because I don't like the feeling, but because all I can hear in my head, I'm quite guilty of this, is myself berating myself for even being there and going, you're better than this, sort it out, stop being immature, stop reacting in this way.
Right.
Look, and I have found that I actually find it quite difficult to be angry. I don't like it, and I've criticized myself for it quite heavily because I don't think it's okay. So I find that initial bit really hard. Like, and actually I've had to learn to go, oh, sod it. Like, you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be disappointed. You feel all these things because you cared so much about it. And that's a good thing, because you cared about it, and that's a positive. So then don't then be so harsh to yourself when you didn't get it. Like, it's okay to be disappointed and to feel like you've let yourself down. Like, that's just natural and it's normal. And actually, it's not very cool, I think, to pretend it didn't. It's a real weird time for me. I have to admit, I do like tussle. I get like a real like wrestling match internally around that bit.
Yeah,
but I think it is an element of just I don't like being angry. I don't think it's very cool. And actually, I can't remember where I read it. It might have been, actually, people are going to be like, oh, bloody hell, it'd be nice if she quoted someone else. I'm sure it was Elizabeth Day, my hero.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Brené Brown.
No, I think Brené does talk about it as well. She's my other hero, my heroines. I'm sure there's a debate that they've had before, maybe not together. I think it's separately. I'm sure Elizabeth Day has, I think, in actually some of her writing that I've read, about how women are not particularly comfortable with being angry and showing anger because of the criticism around it, and the fact that historically, if women showed anger, they were deemed crazy. And it's that really archaic, very historic view of the out of control woman, and how, definitely in like Victorian times, if women showed too much emotion, they were deemed as insane. And a lot of women were put into asylums for being emotional. So, I mean, I can't say, for God's sake, I'm not saying that's where mine comes from, but I do have this connotation of being angry as being ugly, and therefore wanting to avoid it, I think.
Okay.
and being out of control to some extent. But actually, I think what Elizabeth Day's point is actually you can have controlled anger and it's okay. Like you're allowed to be angry and to show emotion and to express yourself. That's quite normal. And again, it's that men do it. So why can't women do it? Men don't get called crazy if they do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. So when you experience setback, what have been some of your experiences around moving past them?
So I think my most relevant story, and it is the story that has stuck with me ever since it took place, is when I studied for my coaching diploma back in 2015. This was part of the assessment process to qualify, was to coach individuals and to be assessed by a fellow coach tutor, who then deemed whether the standard that you were delivering was acceptable and in line with the school's expectations, and that you were coaching in earnest and following the coaching principles and the code of ethics, etc. And I had to do 3 assessments for my diploma, and I failed my second one. Now, I had never failed anything to that point. So I'd managed to get to my 30s and actually not failed anything. I passed my GCSEs, my A-levels, I had high grades. I passed my degree, I got a high grade. I passed my driving test first time. There aren't many jobs that I've ever gone for that I didn't get. You know, I was one of those. And even promotions internally, there's only 1 or 2 times I think I've gone for a promotion and I haven't got it, but they're not the failures that I think of, because actually most of the time I didn't get them because I wasn't right already, and I was quite accepting of that. I actually just appreciated the experience. But this, I would say, was the first time I had done essentially a test and I'd failed a test. And it was, I remember it so acutely at the time, because when it concluded, the assessment, that is, you get immediate feedback from the tutor, which was absolutely brilliant, by the way. Timings wise, it's spot on. You want to know straight away, did I pass or did I not? And if I didn't, what did I get wrong, so that I can learn in the moment, because I can relate it to exactly what has just occurred. So your memory is so fresh. And it was so painful. So like, as you described, the smarting and the sting, I think actually I remember feeling breathless. Like I was so like upset. It was like knocked the wind out of me, because I wanted to pass so badly, because being a coach was something I wanted to do so badly, and I wanted to be really good at it. So to fail that second assessment was such a blow, but it was an incredible experience, because I would say it was my first, what I would describe, true experience of failure as an adult. And it was a failure around something I really wanted and cared about. But the way I moved past it was actually partly in credit to me and my resilience, for sure. I'm not taking that away from myself, but the tutor's feedback was so helpful. It was so constructive, so objective. It meant a lot. Like I could totally understand what she was saying. I could totally see and understand what I needed to do differently. So as soon as I received the feedback, I went in the toilet and cried, because I was at work. Went into the toilet, had a good old cry.
Always helps.
Always helps. I needed to get the emotion out. I was so emotional. You know, it was a disappointment. I wanted to get all the disappointment out. And then I went straight back onto the coaching system that we worked on as students. And I booked in my next assessment. And I booked it in for like 2 weeks later. I was like, I'm jumping back on that horse.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to let this hold me back. I'm not going to let this ruin my feelings about what I can do. I know what I need to do differently, and I can do it, because I'd passed my first assessment, you know. So I think it's so important to like get into perspective straight away, whatever this failure is, and understand it in the wider context of everything. Because I think that's some of the dangers we have when we fail in things, is we get lost so quickly in that failure and it becomes everything, and we use it to dictate who we are, what we're about. You know, it was interesting because we did talk about that a little bit actually with the CBBS in last week's episode about our confidence and what can get in our way. And I think that is something that us as females can do, is And I have to really manage quite closely. I have to make sure I know that the failure is not determining everything about me. Like it's not a comment on me. So I literally booked the next assessment there and then. And I spent 2 weeks practicing, watching coaching demonstrations online. And I did the assessment again. And I passed it. So that's great, because you have an opportunity to do this kind of second one repeat. And then actually I went on and did my third final assessment and I got a distinction. So, and I remember going into that third and final assessment going, you know what you're doing, you know what you did wrong before, but you know, you managed to correct it. You know what to do differently now. You're going to be fine. And yeah, so it's always stayed with me as it's one of the best lessons I ever had, actually.
Yeah.
Especially my coaching career was failing at it.
Yeah.
Because I've never forgotten it. And it's really cemented actually a lot of the, what I would classify as like the pure coaching process in my head. And it's significant because I know why it's important and I know what difference it makes when you get it right. But yeah, so that's my example of moving past a setback. What's yours? What do you have?
I think those, just to touch upon what you said there, like about some of those feelings, I think some of those feelings do stay with you because they are quite powerful in terms of, you know, what you feel when you suddenly are facing a setback or a challenge of some description. I've had a couple of instances in my life, actually, like there has been stuff in my career, but I'm going to talk about stuff outside of work. One is when I was a child, which has really stayed with me. So I'll tell you a story. So I was in junior school. I think I was like in year 5, year 6, so about age 10, nearly 11. And we had this gardening competition. So we each had like a little plot of like, there was a gardening like bed outside our classroom window, and it had been like carved up into little plots, and we all had our own plots. And the whole point of it was we had to plant some seeds and some plants and whatever, make it look really nice and grow. And then whoever had the best kind of like turnaround of this plot, I think it was, you know, like won. I don't even know what the prize was, I can't remember. Anyway, I think I went a bit half-assed on doing this. I think I put some seeds in, but I didn't really like look after them. I certainly didn't probably water them enough, etc. But I remember I was quite confident that I'd done enough. Like I was like, yeah, this is going to be it. And then it came to like the judging of the mini garden. And obviously I hadn't done enough. I like pretty much came last, I think, out of all of them. So they were like ranked, and there was about 12 different people. And I remember being so upset, right? And being like, oh, I didn't get this. I didn't get what I wanted. And I think as well, like my mum and dad said something like, well, if you win this, you can also get this extra treat or something. You know, like there was another layer to it. And I was nowhere near. And I remember feeling so disappointed and so gutted. But it also definitely sparked something in me around doing better. I didn't know what it was at the time because I was only 10 years old, but it sparked something. Anyway, this competition came around again, say like 3 months later or whatever. And I worked so hard in making sure that this piece of basically like garden like bed looked beautiful and stunning. Like there was plants in there. I remember I put some of that, you know, like that small fencing you can get, like I'd put like some of that like tiny little fencing around it, like as a border. Anyway, I flipping won, didn't I? I flipping won. And I remember like the feeling of achievement that I'd kind of, at the time, again, I didn't know what it was. I couldn't make sense of it. But now I look back on it, and basically what I was experiencing was that I had moved past that setback. I'd taken those learns and I'd used that to propel me forward in doing better next time. Yeah. I remember that as a child, and it still sticks in my mind now because those feelings, I think, when I didn't win were so strong that I was like, I don't want to experience that again, or I want to make sure that I do better. Yeah. So there's that. And also, I think the other kind of thing as well is now as an adult, I'm really not good. And this really like triggers me if I experience failure or setback and it's personal. So actually, when I was qualifying to be a coach as well, obviously I did assessments too. And also when we work for ourselves, you know, you and I, we put stuff in all the time for jobs and we get a lot of no's.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of running your own business. And actually, when those no's are based on the fact that actually you haven't got the right experience, or you haven't got this, or you haven't got those skills, or we're actually looking for this, I'm a lot better at managing those and being like quite matter of fact about it and being like, yeah, that's fair enough. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
When somebody takes that and makes it personal and it's about me, so whether that's about my character, about the way I've turned up, or my attitude, or my response to something, it really, really bothers me.
Yeah.
And I find that so much harder to move on from. Yeah. And that goes back to my point initially, which was around when I'm in that situation or space, it takes me a lot longer to process it and get to that second stage of being like, okay, what could I learn from here? How can I grow moving forward? Because it's got personal, and that I find that really, really challenging and difficult.
Yeah. Which I think is totally understandable, because actually that it's that type of basis of failure that has been associated to who you are that is the hardest, because you are who you are, and it's based on a multitude of things and a multitude of time and experience. And especially because I would like to think that you like who you are. And so when someone doesn't then agree, that's really difficult, because
absolutely,
you know, that's really hard. Like, I don't like being disliked. You know, I am a bit of a people pleaser. I know I am. It's funny, actually. I am to an extent. If I don't like someone, I think it's fine, but I don't like it reciprocated. It's really weird. It's not, I mean, that's so double standards. It doesn't even make any sense. But it is true. But it's because I like who I am, and I assume that everyone else will. And if someone doesn't, or if they say I'm not the right fit, that's always quite hard to deal with. And it can be quite painful, because, you know, there is an element, I think, of we all want to fit in. And so that's quite difficult when someone says the door's shut on you, like you're not welcome here. And as I said, especially when I think if you like yourself and you've been working hard on the perception of yourself outwardly, when someone then starts breaking it down, it's natural to then become defensive and natural to get upset about that, because we all, you know, your natural instinct will be to protect yourself. So it's really hard.
So why do you think we often just want to give up then when things get tough?
I think it is actually related to what I was talking about, and that is the view of others. It's like very few of us fail in private. You know, it's very public what happens to us when things go wrong, because we're interacting with one another all the time. And in the context of work, well, it's with other people. You don't work solely, you know, you don't really work solo. And when things go wrong, it's very unlikely that it's just you who experiences the failure. Like, it's got an audience. I'm not talking about like huge audience. We're not celebrities, not yet anyway. But you know, when you get something wrong, people are looking at you. And especially like when I think about, you know, even in that coaching example, but I didn't feel that way actually in that example, because I didn't feel judged by the person who was assessing me. I felt that they had my back. I do think that's part of why I was able to move past that so quickly, actually, in many ways, is I felt that the person failed me to help me. Yeah, they had my back. Yeah. Now, in lots of examples I've got, that was not the case. So when someone failed me, it was actually for their own gain, which sounds really hard, like sadistic. I don't know whether I even mean it like that. But at the end of the day, if you don't get a job, the person who's failed you has failed you to get you out of the way, because they want someone different that suits them better. So there is an element of what I'm describing there. But I suppose when I failed in a public environment, in an organisation, there's people there watching, because there are people there who did the interview. There are people there who were my manager that knew I was going for it. There's people around me who possibly even knew that I was going for it. And there is an expectation of all of them as to, well, what's happened? You know, and you have to explain yourself to people in an element of that. And there is an element of judging going on. You know, and you can't escape it. I don't care what anyone says. No one is completely non-judgmental. It's a lie. No one. You can't be. So I do think there is an element of giving up when things get tough because of fear and fear of failure and everything that brings. Like, we all focus in on the negatives. I don't think we focus on the fact of success. Like, lots of us generally, I read this somewhere and I can't remember where. I should get better at citing my references, but I think it's like natural human instinct is we have a stronger feeling to move away from things than towards. So when it comes then to opportunities, challenges, we are much more inclined to move away from them because of the potential for what's going to go wrong than rush towards it for the potential of what we're going to achieve.
Yeah, well, we're trying to protect ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So I do think it's got a lot to do with that. And there are some of us, I think, who are not necessarily comfortable in our own skin. So there is an element of not wanting to push ourselves out of our comfort zone because we just simply don't like it.
Yeah. Or we don't know how to do it either.
Well, there's that too. And actually staying where we are in the space we've created feels better and safer. But I would always challenge that in terms of you will never know that what you're doing is the right thing for you if you don't know what else is out there. You don't know whether actually there could be something even better. I do this with things like my husband, when he forces me to do outdoorsy things that I don't particularly like. So I end up having to scale mountains and stuff, which, to be quite honest, is totally out of my comfort zone. I like exercising, but I don't like dangerous things.
Same.
And so, some of the stuff that we were doing in South Africa recently, I wouldn't have probably willingly done some of that. But if it wasn't for Dom going, think about how you will feel when you've reached the top, when it'd be an amazing achievement when you've got to the top, the whole way up, I'm going, yeah, but what about when I break my ankle? Or what about when I fall off the side of the mountain? Or what about when we get to the top and then I trip over? I think about the negatives and the fact that they may have to get like the National Park Service of South Africa out to airlift me down.
Winch you off.
Yeah. Whereas Dom's going, think about how amazing it's going to be when we get to the top. Think about how you're going to feel. Think about the view. I'm just like, all I was thinking about when we were climbing some of these mountains was the beer at the end. But yeah, I think that has got a lot to do with it. I do think as well there's an element of this will pass.
Yes.
None of it, when things go wrong for us, they're not permanent. Not really. I'm saying this now and I'm being a bit hesitant about it. I think in the context of like work, I'll keep it in work because that's actually probably the truest of where that statement I've just said actually lives. But in a work situation or even educational, actually, none of it's permanent. And there's very few situations, I think, where you don't have the opportunity to try again. And as I sort of originally said, I do think it's about remembering that it doesn't define who you are, no matter how you feel at the time. And doesn't matter how someone else potentially has made you feel at the time. It doesn't define who you are. And you have every opportunity to change that definition and to try again. I was thinking about it actually, because a good example that fits into exactly what I'm saying is, a couple of years ago, I applied to work for a coaching organisation and I didn't get it. Well, I applied again this year and I got it. Now, that may also be because they've forgotten about me and they've misplaced that application from 2 years ago. But
I doubt it very much.
I'd like to think it's because I've grown and got more experience and I'm more relevant and useful to them now. And equally, maybe they're better for me right now in my situation.
Yeah, it wasn't the right time before.
No, but you see what I'm saying? Like you do have the opportunity often to try again in situations like work. As I said, I'm not talking about bigger, wider things going wrong necessarily. I know it's not applicable to everything, but in general, in the main, I think you have the opportunity to try again. And I think when you remember that, I know that takes pressure off me to kind of go, maybe it's not right now. Maybe it's a not yet. Back to that growth mindset that we love from Dr. Carol Dweck. Maybe it's a not yet. It's not a never. So I do think that's important to think about.
Yeah. So what would your suggestions be then to help our CBeebies in how they manage setbacks?
I think probably the first thing is do better than I do, which is sit with it, feel it all, and allow yourself to be angry, to be upset, to be frustrated. Like, it's completely okay. It's totally natural and completely normal. So I think that's got to be the first one, is just sit with that emotional state for a while. fair enough, sit with it in a place where you feel safe and comfortable to do so. And I know for me, I have to be on my own. I don't want anyone around me, because I don't have to explain it, or apologize for it either. I mean, that's really important. So I would definitely say that's number one. I do think when you're ready is talking about it with somebody. I do really benefit generally from talking about most things, because I do want to get out of my own head, and I want to be able to talk it aloud. And it actually helps me to get perspective on it, to hear it out loud. Because as soon as I hear myself often, I'm like, it just doesn't matter. Like, it's not a big deal. But when it's in my head, it feels massive. So I do really appreciate talking about it and being able to review it at the same time. Again, I think, make sure you do that with someone you feel comfortable and who you trust, because don't do it with anyone who you feel the opposite with, because you'll just get stuck in that place of being judged. And like I talked about, like having an audience with your disappointment, and that's not very nice. And then I think it is about reviewing it in terms of like, what has happened and what can I learn from this? There will always be opportunities in failure to be better. You will learn things about yourself. There'll be things you'll do differently. I think many times when I've failed at something, I've acknowledged that I wasn't good enough on the day, and I wasn't the right person, or I didn't have the right skill set, or I took the wrong approach, or I didn't prepare well enough. Like, I can't really think of a time when I didn't do very well at something and I couldn't pinpoint it down to my own actions. You are going to have those instances when you don't get the job and it's because the face didn't fit. Like, unfortunately, that's life. It does happen. It's bloody annoying. But I'm actually quite accepting of that, because I just think, well, if this one wasn't right for me, there will be another one that is. And I do think part of my learning tip is take action straight away. Like, I do think taking action of any kind is only ever a positive, and it helps you to immediately move out of the space that you're in and the last action you took and on to the next thing. And that really helps me. So I would definitely recommend that as well.
Definitely. To build off that, when you talk there about reviewing like the situation, I think also just in this like world society that we live in now, everything is instant. We have instant messages and marketing on social media, our need for instant TV, instant everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like the word of the world right now. But actually, when you think about it and you look back on those stories about Joe Wicks, when you think about some of the stories around some other kind of Oprah Winfrey, for example, like she went through a number of rejections before she got to the point where her kind of career exploded. They do feel, potentially when you're talking about celebrities, can feel like a little bit unrelatable, but actually they all started somewhere, and they have all been through, a path themselves. I sometimes find reminding myself of that actually quite helpful, that it's not just me, that everybody, whether they talk about it openly or not, everybody at some point will experience some form of setback or failure, whatever you want to define it as. And that is totally normal, because I think if you don't, then actually that in itself isn't great, because you don't ever then learn, you don't ever then get to grow and develop. And so just reminding yourself of that bigger context, when you're in it, can be hard to do, but I think can be really, really helpful in helping you kind of move forward.
Absolutely. It's time for this week's workplace shame. So this is where we share an embarrassing workplace story from one of our listeners, or one of us if times are desperate. Luckily, today is not one of those times, because my stories are becoming more and more inappropriate and not a good idea to support my career if I share them. So this week, we actually have a listener story. So I'm going to read this story out. So this person's story is based around a customer meeting. So they worked in an organization in quite a senior position, I think, from the description in their story. So a senior manager position. They were attending a customer meeting with a member of their team. So this was an important customer of theirs, and they were discussing a review of their account with said business. Anyway, they're sitting around a circular table in a meeting room. And this individual, our listener, starts feeling a little bit sniffly. So I believe from the description, it was summer. So they had hay fever, which actually I'm struggling with at the moment. Anyway, they were getting a bit sniffly and they didn't have a tissue. So we've all been there. You're in a situation. It's a small room. It's only a small table. There were only 3 individuals. So it was this person, the member of their team, and the customer sitting around quite a close environment. So this is clearly pre-COVID. And they've got the sniffles, but they've got no tissue. So they're sniffing away. And then all of a sudden, they blow out of their nose slightly. So they do a motion. Is all I can get across on the microphone. Anyway, a bogey flies out of their nostril and lands right square in the middle of this table in front of the customer and their team member.
Oh my gosh.
They're unable to do anything about it without making it too obvious. But clearly everyone has seen it. Everyone has seen this bogey fly out and land in the middle of the table. And they just proceed to continue with the meeting with this bogey in the middle of the table.
Oh, this is so, I'm actually cringing in my seat.
It's awful.
I'm literally retracting in my body language. Like, this is awful. This is shame.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And then they just conclude the meeting by the sounds of things from what they've sent to me. They just conclude the meeting and they leave with that bogey just.
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness me.
It's awful.
Oh my God, that's such an awful shame story, but a good shame story.
It's a really good one. Thank you so much, listener.
But thank you so much, CBB, who sent that in.
It's brilliant.
I know you've asked to remain anonymous, which is fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's only suitable. So yes, so if you have a workplace shame that can possibly contest with that one, then
you're all welcome here.
Yeah, please do send it through to us. Just email it to hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or remember, you can always message us directly on Instagram by searching for The Coaching Cast. And don't worry, all workplace shame stories, apart from Susie's and mine, will get kept anonymous.
They'll get the VIP treatment. We don't get that, unfortunately.
No. It's now time for Bullshit Bingo, where we call out phrases which get commonly used in the workplace, which quite frankly make us cringe and we think is a load of bloody nonsense. So this week, our Bullshit Bingo came from one of our followers on LinkedIn, who have actually been brilliant at supplying us with Bullshit Bingo. So thank you very much to the LinkedIn crew.
Yeah, keep them coming.
This one is singing off the same hymn sheet. So Suze, what do you think of this one?
Oh, the Lord is my shepherd, and
stars wherever he may be. That's a good one. Lord of the dove says, I will lead you wherever he may be.
There we go, little song entourage there.
Oh my God, all these hymns I only remember from primary school.
Yeah,
there's
that's
so many good ones.
Remember. I used to sing a lot of hymns at school.
Oh yeah, I went to a Church of England primary school. And I was also a brownie and a girl guide. I did a lot of church activities and I played the flute. I actually think I was in the local church band at one point.
Wow. What a CV.
I know. Who would know? All my skills. I have so many. Yeah. I used to do girl guides on a Sunday. So many times did I have to hold the flag and walk down the church. Yeah.
Well, I bet you did a lot of singing off the same hymn sheet then.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't very good, but yeah, my auntie is also a vicar as well. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Vicar. Yeah. She's a vicar. She's a vicar in Herne Bay in Kent. Shout out to Carol.
Yeah,
my Auntie Carol.
Big love to Auntie Carol.
Yeah, Auntie Carol. She's a Rev. Actually, I never know if I get her actual religious title correct. But I think Reverend Carol Smith. I think that's right. Hang on, let me just check her out on Facebook. I think it's Reverend Carol Smith.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure she will definitely love this Bullshit Bingo then, singing off the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, she probably won't like the fact we swore, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Although I always say this, do people of the cloth despise swearing, or do they not swear as well? Vicar at Church of England. It was vicar.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Sorry, Auntie Carol.
But have you used this bullshit bingo?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm sure I've said singing off the same hymn sheet. I mean, like, for someone who's not religious, but obviously has had quite a religious career. Yeah, I've definitely used this.
I've used this.
I think I've used it in a family context. I think this comes up in the home.
Wow, really? I don't think I've ever used it in a home context.
Or maybe it's just my house. I'm sure my family have used it. I'm sure my mum said.
Auntie Carol was round.
Maybe. I'm sure my dad's used it. I think even my mum's used it, singing off the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, I've definitely used it.
It's quite a classic one.
It's a classic.
This is historical. This has historical relevance.
Yeah, it's got a lot of gravitas against it. It's a big one. It's a classic. It's up there.
I think it sits in the English like vocab.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got any bullshit bingos that you hear at work or come across, we need to hear from them because we've only got 2 episodes left of this season.
Yes, we've already got any episodes left. We're nearly at the end. We're going to start planning season 6. So get them in to get your bullshit bingos featured in season 6.
We are coming to the end of today's episode where we have discussed moving past setbacks or failure. Our top tips and recommendations from today's episode are: number 1, feel all those feels. Sit with those emotions and just be with them. Let them happen. Let them come. Let them move away. But actually just kind of let it happen, because then you'll find it easier to transition to that second phase, which I talked about in terms of, okay, what can I now learn from this situation? Top tip number 2, talk it through with someone who you trust. I am a massive advocate of this. I do this a lot. I like talking things through with people I trust. And this can really help you get out of your own head and just kind of make sense of the situation. So that is our second top tip. Number 3, review the situation and identify the learnings and then take action immediately. So think about Lisa's story with her coaching assignment. She took action pretty much immediately and rebooked doing it, took the learnings, off she went, passed second time, absolute winner. So think about how you can review and take the action to move yourself forward. And top tip number 4, remind yourself of the bigger picture. Seek out those stories, whether that's the story we shared today about Joe Wicks and his rise and setbacks he encountered with the launch of the Body Coach, but also stories we talked about Oprah Winfrey. There's loads if you Google them, but seek out actually some reassurances that everybody goes through failure and setback, and that is totally normal. So do not worry. We also have some self-coaching questions that you can ask yourself. Number 1, what do you need to let go of? Number 2, what positive feedback would you give yourself right now? And number 3, what would you do if you had no fear? Don't worry if you can't remember all of these top tips and self-coaching questions. They will be on our Instagram page at The Coaching Cast this week for you to refer back to.
We really hope that you've enjoyed today and have some new ideas to take away and try for yourselves. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we would love to hear from you. You can contact us in 3 ways: on email at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, on Instagram at thecoachingcast, and finally, you can contact us through our website, www.thecoachingcast.co.uk.
Your support helps more than you know. So if you like what you've heard today and would like to help us grow this podcast, please do us a favor, leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. You have no idea how important these are. Hit subscribe wherever you listen and give us a follow on Instagram at The Coaching Cast. Don't forget, you can also watch each episode on our YouTube channel by searching The Coaching Cast.
In next episode, we are really, really excited to have a guest joining us who is going to be teaching us a hell of a lot about things that we don't know and that we hope you find useful too. And that is Danielle Thompson, who's going to be here discussing what corporate social responsibility means in today's world and what it can look like for small to medium businesses. Danielle's going to be talking to us about B Corp, so I'm really excited about that.
I know.
We're going to learn more about it.
Absolutely. And this is a subject which came through from you, our CBeebies, when we asked what topics you would like us to cover for this season. So we're really excited for this episode, which will be out next week. We both love music and use it to motivate and energize us. So we like to finish each episode with our personal song recommendation, giving you positivity and energy as you launch into your next meeting. It's my choice this week, and I have chosen Blue, Haven't Found You Yet, which is their brand new song from 2022, and it is so good.
You're so 90s noughties. It's so hilarious.
Blue is basically the soundtrack to my uni days. I was obsessed with them. I still am. I did not
know this. I've learned something new about CB.
And they've got a brand new single out. Haven't Found You Yet. It's really good. It was also Song of the Week last week on Radio 2 because I'm an avid Radio 2 fan now.
So am I.
Guys, you need to go and check it out. Honestly, it's actually really catchy.
Oh God. What is she doing to us, everyone? We're now all listening to Blue. She's ruining my street cred.
Yeah, no, do it.
I didn't have any, but
thanks for listening, CBeebies. Have a great week. And remember, you've got this.